Hi, Julie Jones from SSB Performance, Smarter, Stronger, Better Mindset Training, here with this week's Mindset Made Simple Tip of the Week, brought to you by Game Day Sportswear. This week, we're talking about the pictures in our head. And I've asked the question at the top of this tip, is it time to update the pictures in your head? And we'll find out here in just a couple minutes. But over the past few weeks, I've spent a lot of time at my dad's house, sorting, organizing, selling all kinds of things. And after a few days of estate sales and family and friends taking what they can use, as you can imagine, the house looks a little bit different than when my parents lived there. A lot different, in fact. There isn't much furniture left. Drawers and cupboards that were once full, and I mean full. I still have 20 hammers, if anybody needs one or maybe 5. But all of the things that are full are nearly empty. And many of the things that have been in the same place for years are gone. They're not there anymore. But apparently, no one sent this update to my brain. Because people all along, as we're out there at the house or we're thinking about doing different things, people asked if we had tape or a certain tool or some other random item. And I'd immediately picture exactly where it was and begin to give directions on where they could find it. The tape is in the kitchen drawer, except it wasn't. That's where it used to be. Someone would ask about a piece of furniture, and I could still see it sitting in the room where it had always been. And even though the room was now empty, it still seemed like it was there in my head. The house had changed, but the pictures in my head did not. They still haven't in many ways. And it made me think about how often we do the same thing in performance. Everything is a mental performance lab in my brain. Location of tape or furniture or a play on a field, we are built to see these pictures. An athlete has one terrible game and keeps replaying the strikeout, the missed shot, or the bad race, or that costly mistake. A coach goes through a difficult season and continues to see herself as a coach who couldn't get the team turned around. A leader mishandles a conversation and hangs on to that picture of the disappointment on someone's face forever. But these things change, or things change, I should say. And even after we improve or we learn or we gain experience, that old picture can remain filed away in the same old mental drawer. Then, this is what makes it really fun, when we're under pressure, our brain pulls that out and says, hey, here, you might need this. You might need this picture. And of course, it's rarely the picture that we would choose. The picture may be real, but it may no longer be accurate. This was my experience. And it's really something that's really important to think about. Updating the picture doesn't mean that we're pretending that the past didn't happen. It doesn't mean erasing mistakes. It doesn't mean avoiding responsibility or creating some unrealistic highlight reel in which every play always goes up, runs our way, or ends up perfect. The tape was really in the drawer. The athlete really did strike out. The coach really did make the wrong decision. The performance happened. But it was a snapshot of who we were, what was happening, what we knew, and what we were capable of at that moment. It's not necessarily an accurate picture of who we are today. Since then, whenever that picture was made, we have practiced, we've learned, we've adjusted, we've healed, or we've gained experience. We may have developed a better approach, a stronger routine, a more productive response to pressure. We could have upped our mental game. The problem is that our abilities and our circumstances can change faster than our mental pictures do. If the picture in our head still says, I fall apart in big moments, or I can't make that shot, or I always tighten up, or I'm not a confident leader, or whatever the I'm not is, we may enter the next opportunity responding to an old version of ourselves. We are standing in a newly arranged room while mentally reaching into the same old drawer. But fortunately, mental rehearsal can help us create a more useful picture. In fact, I use it this morning. I use it at the beginning of every semester to create a new picture of the new class of students. This helps me learn their names before next week. Now, they all need to sit in the same side of the room for at least one more class, so I don't have to update my image too quickly. But all joking aside, research on sport imagery or mental rehearsal, which I like to call it, helps explain why intentionally updating these pictures can be so powerful. Mental rehearsal is not simply seeing ourselves succeed. It involves creating or recreating an experience using as many senses as possible. We can see the environment, we hear the sounds, we feel the movement, we experience the emotions connected to performance. And according to the Association of Applied Sports Psychology, easy for me to say, athletes can use imagery, known rehearsal, to enhance training, build confidence, improve focus, and prepare to complete, boy, this is getting fun, compete more effectively. Research surrounding the PETTLEP approach to imagery also reminds us that effective mental rehearsal should reflect the performer's current physical experience, the physical environment, the task, the timing, the emotions, the level of learning. In other words, the imagery must change as the performer changes. Otherwise, we're rehearsing bad data. Researchers reviewing this Patel model supports its value when the rehearsal is realistic, meaningful, and actively engages us. We're living it. That learning piece is what really matters here. The picture of how you performed a skill 6 months ago may not match the way you're doing it now. The picture of how you responded to pressure last season may not include the reset routine that you've since developed. The picture of yourself as a nervous freshman or a struggling assistant coach or an inexperienced leader may not account for everything you have learned since. Your experience has changed, your skills have changed, maybe your role has changed. And change must happen. Change is going to happen. If it doesn't, this is when athletes and teams get into the old, oh, here we go again mindset when something doesn't go their way, particularly if they're coming off a tough season. And that season has nothing to do with this season. Because, again, things have changed. You've changed. The team's changed. Has the picture in your head changed with them, is the question. This is one of the reasons I'm really excited to be consulting with Cairo. This is a guided visualization app designed for athletes. This app helps athletes create personalized mental rehearsal experiences based on their sport, on their goals, on their current challenges. And the cool thing is it changes. It can update with new circumstances, new opponents, new experiences, new expectations. Because effective visualization isn't about watching the same generic success movie over and over. It's about deliberately rehearsing the performer you're becoming. And we also want to rehearse the responses we want available when moments arrive. So let's update our pictures. I know I could benefit this in a few new scenes in my head, that's for sure. So think of one performance situation that tends to pull you and one that's outdated or unhelpful. Maybe you still see yourself making the mistake. Maybe you picture yourself hesitating, tightening up, losing control, maybe even as a leader, maybe as a performer, either way. Maybe the picture says, this is what I always do. We love that. We love to play that over and over in our head. Now we're going to ask ourselves 3 questions. What is the old picture? We're going to describe it honestly. We're going to think about what we see happening. We're going to think about what we feel, and we're going to think about how that belief reinforces the picture. We're going to ask ourselves then, what has changed since that picture was created? We're going to look for evidence. We're going to think about what we've learned, what have we practiced, what tools and skills and experiences do we have now that we didn't have then? And then thirdly, what is the updated picture? We're going to close our eyes. We're going to mentally rehearse the situation again using what we know we can do today. We're going to see the environment. We're going to feel our body settle in. We're going to hear our cues. We're going to picture ourselves taking the next productive action. And we're going to make the updated version realistic. We don't need to imagine flawless performance. In fact, sometimes it might be more useful to picture something going wrong and then rehearse ourselves responding effectively. They call this coping imagery. There's actually a name for it. We see the missed shot, not what we wanted to happen. We don't want to watch ourselves mess up too much, but then we rehearse our immediate transition to defense or whatever it is. This is real. This is a skill, and this changes the picture. We can also employ what they call motivational mastery imagery, and instead of imaging everything that goes perfectly, we picture ourselves encountering a realistic challenge and responding effectively. We rehearse staying composed. We rehearse using our reset. We rehearse returning our attention to the next action. In this case, someone like a cross-country runner can visualize trailing behind on a steep, muddy hill during a rainstorm. All sounds so fun. But he sees himself digging his spikes in, fighting through the burning in his lungs, and passing his rival on the way to the top. Again, the reality of running cannot be ignored, and we need realistic pictures of it, realistic, updated pictures of it. We aren't looking for perfection. We're looking at progress, at preparation, and at response ability. We can always respond. Leaders and performers alike, and me too, can spend 60 seconds, come on, rehearsing these pictures every day. We need to give our brain enough repetitions to recognize that the old images are no longer the only possibility. The pictures in our head can feel like facts simply because we have looked at them for way too long, plain and simple. But some of them are only snapshots, and we know that. They're in the past because things change. We grow, we learn, we gain experience, and every so often, we need to open up our mental drawers, notice what no longer is there, and update the pictures we're using to guide what's coming at us next. Your past performance is part of your story, no doubt about it, but it doesn't have to remain the picture of your future performance. So, as you're thinking back, or you're thinking at all the things that go through your head, what are you picturing? Are you picturing the tape in the drawer that isn't there anymore? Are you picturing the mistake that you made once or twice years ago? I mean, those are the things that stick with us. Remember Dr. Ziegler saying that, the memories that we have in the front of our file cabinet were all emotion laden. When we make a mistake, we feel it. And those pictures stick with us for a long time. So I am asking you to ask yourself a couple questions. What pictures do you need to update? I have to update a whole house full because soon we won't even own that house. I won't know anything about it at some point. And the pictures that I have, I don't necessarily want to get rid of them, not all of them, but if they're not helping me, why am I carrying them along? And the question is, why are you? So think about your pictures. Which ones do you need to give a little sprucing up, and which ones do you need to delete? Because there's probably a ton of them that you're carrying around that are just taking up space. So if you'd like to talk about this or anything else that has to do with mental performance, reach out, juliej@ssbperformance.com. I apologize for a few mistakes as we went through today. I can't get my language right. I just heard that Dolly Parton died, and for some reason that makes me really sad. But what a great influence on the world she was. So thank you, Dolly, for being a great example of what caring for others should really look like. A weird way to end today, but hats off to Dolly Parton. And I hope you have a great week. And remember, the choice is yours.